According to a source, here's the quote, Prince William plans to flex his muscles and wipe his wayward brother, Prince Harry, and his power-hungry wife, Meghan, from the history books, it says.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired.
But it's hardly a secret that the palace has already conducted secret meetings with members of the government to discuss putting the plan into action.
A brewing royal firestorm is shaking the UK establishment in a way nobody saw coming, and Prince Harry is suddenly at the centre of it all in a very intense spotlight moment that just keeps escalating fast. The House of Lords, known as Britain's highest legislative chamber, has officially pushed forward a petition that aims to strip Harry of his Duke of Sussex title. And this is not just gossip or tabloid noise flying around online, it is formal, recorded and actively moving through political channels with real weight behind it. Reports are now saying Harry is absolutely furious about the situation, reacting strongly behind the scenes as the pressure continues building from every direction, especially as the situation becomes more official by the day. A man who once stepped away from royal duty in exchange for a life filled with global attention, media deals and high-profile appearances is now facing a system that appears to be tightening its grip rather than loosening it, and the consequences being discussed are far from small or symbolic. Insiders claim Harry is deeply frustrated because the same royal institution he distanced himself from is now moving in a way that could cut off one of the last remaining connections he holds to his royal identity, and that shift is being described as both personal and political at the same time. This is not a minor warning or a quiet suggestion either. It is being framed as a full-scale challenge to his remaining royal standing, something that could reshape.
You just wait until Prince William is king. I think he's going to put his handsome foot down and he is going to rock Meghan Markle's world. Meghan Markle is going to be humbled very quickly.
According to a report in OK magazine, Prince William plans on stripping both Harry and Meghan of their HRH titles once he becomes king.
Meghan ruined Harry. Now that the once carefree, fun-loving prince has turned into a miserable moaner, lashing out from the depths of his paranoia at a world he thinks is conspiring against him.
How he is officially recognised moving forward in public life. The push is being led by the House of Lords itself, a powerful legislative body in the United Kingdom that carries serious influence in constitutional discussions, and that alone has made this situation feel far more intense than typical royal controversy stories. According to parliamentary discussions, this petition is not coming from fringe voices or random public outrage, but instead from a structured coalition of senior political figures, including Conservative peers and respected crossbench members who are now raising concerns about Harry's actions and public conduct. These lawmakers are accusing Prince Harry of recklessly using or benefiting from his royal identity in ways that they argue cross a serious line, especially when it comes to how royal titles are perceived globally. And what makes this even more serious is the fact that official parliamentary records confirm the petition is under formal review, meaning it is not being ignored or dismissed. It is actively being examined within political systems that handle constitutional matters. At the centre of the legal discussion is a historical reference point, Section 1 of the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, a law that was originally created during wartime to strip royals of their titles if they were seen as siding with enemy nations during World War I.
The HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family because it denotes a level of I guess, respect in the public, and also it's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honour to have an HRH.
And it's all about trust. They excluded Meghan Markle from the Sandringham Summit because they were afraid she would secretly record the meeting and release it to the media. There is no trust when it comes to Prince Harry.
A new poll reveals that the declining arc of Harry's popularity has accelerated into a high-speed plummet.
Now, while Harry is not being accused of anything like military betrayal or wartime misconduct, some lawmakers are arguing that the principle behind the law still applies in a modern symbolic sense. especially when it comes to perceived loyalty and public representation. They are framing the issue less as legal treason and more as what they call a constitutional and moral breach, suggesting that his public actions may conflict with the dignity expected from someone holding a royal title. Within days of the petition going public, it reportedly gained tens of thousands of signatures from members of the public, showing that the conversation is not limited to politicians, but has spilled into broader public debate as well. Even more surprising to some observers is that the discussion has started gaining traction across both houses of Parliament, meaning voices from different political backgrounds are now engaging with the idea rather than ignoring it completely. This is no longer being treated as symbolic noise or media exaggeration. It is being viewed as an issue with real constitutional implications that could potentially lead to official action if momentum continues building. So what exactly triggered this political escalation and sudden pressure building around Harry's title in the first place? And why now, of all times, is Parliament reacting so strongly?
There's a conversation with you,
with Harry,
about how dark your baby is going to be?
potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
My wife is not visibly black, but that's who she is. The way that they speak about her and the way they treat her is incredibly relatable to everybody else of colour.
Meghan has always been a mad, keen player of the victim card. The nasty Brits who took against her because of the colour of her skin. The social media lynch mob who are so unconscionably cruel to her. The journalist haters who keep writing about what a bully she is. All the negative media coverage she gets has nothing to do with her.
One of the main factors being pointed to is Harry's increasing involvement in American political and cultural discussions, something that critics say clashes with the expectation of neutrality, traditionally associated with British royal titles. Over the past few years, Harry has taken part in interviews, documentaries, and public appearances where he has openly expressed opinions on sensitive topics, including making controversial remarks about US constitutional principles, at one point describing the First Amendment as bonkers, which sparks strong reactions online and in political circles. Beyond that, critics argue that both Harry and Meghan have associated themselves with groups and networks in California that are viewed as politically active or ideologically strong, further fueling debate about whether royal branding is being used in those spaces. Some royal commentators and constitutional analysts have gone as far as labelling this situation title laundering, suggesting that royal identity is being used as a kind of credibility shield for global messaging and media influence. British lawmakers are now openly questioning why a British duke is engaging in discussions that overlap with foreign political debates, especially when it comes to issues like free speech and electoral environments in another country. Their concern is being framed in very direct terms, with some arguing that Harry has effectively turned his royal title into a tool.
I can't imagine having to feel like it's appropriate to have those sorts of close and should be otherwise private family conversations just fleshed out in public. I find that really quite sad.
I'm very, very surprised the openness with which Harry and Meghan have gone into this, in that, they're sharing text messages, they're sharing very private photographs, they're sharing every detail of their most secret trips in the early days of their relationship. And this is a couple who said they left the royal family seeking privacy.
That intersects with political influence in ways that were never intended. From their perspective, this is not just about personal expression. It is about the meaning and boundaries of what a royal title represents in modern global politics. Since stepping back from official royal duties in 2020, Harry has built a highly visible international presence, often through media projects that focus heavily on his personal experiences within the royal family. This includes the widely discussed Oprah Winfrey interview, where serious allegations and emotional claims were made about life inside the monarchy, sparking global headlines and strong public reactions. It also includes the Netflix documentary series featuring Harry and Meghan, which offered an inside look at their perspective on royal life and added even more fuel to ongoing debates about their relationship with the institution. Then came his memoir, where Harry shared detailed personal accounts and critical reflections involving multiple senior royals, further intensifying public discussion about his role and narrative. For critics in Parliament, these actions are being interpreted not as simple storytelling, but as a pattern of public exposure that raises questions about loyalty, representation, and the use of royal identity for global attention. Legal experts have weighed in as well, noting that under UK constitutional principles, royal titles are not permanently untouchable and can be reviewed or removed under specific conditions, especially when national interest is argued. Some lawmakers are even exploring the idea of new legislation that would tighten rules around how royal titles can be used internationally, particularly in political or lobbying-related contexts, which is being discussed under proposals like a potential dignity of the crown style framework. At this stage, insiders suggest Harry is being positioned at the centre of these discussions, with his situation effectively becoming the reference point for why reform is being considered at all. Public sentiment is also playing a major role in how this conversation is evolving, with recent polling showing a noticeable shift in opinion among UK citizens regarding his title and public role. According to reported figures from surveys including YouGov and media polling, a significant portion of the British public now supports the idea of stripping his Duke of Sussex title, and among certain demographics that support grows even stronger. Even more unexpectedly, segments of voters who are usually more sympathetic toward modern reforms within the monarchy are also expressing concern that Harry may have gone too far in his public actions and media involvement. Public perception of Prince Harry has taken a massive hit in a way that feels sharp, loud, and impossible to ignore anymore, and the shift is spreading fast across the UK like wildfire ignited in dry wind conditions. What used to be a carefully maintained image of Harry as the relatable royal walking behind Princess Diana in childhood memories has now flipped completely, and the narrative surrounding him has changed into something far more controversial and divisive in public conversation. Across media circles and everyday discussions, he is increasingly described not as a modern royal reformer, but as a self-exiled millionaire living comfortably overseas while continuing to speak publicly about the very institution he chose to leave behind, and that contrast is fueling serious backlash. In a widely circulated News Street interview, ordinary citizens were asked about Harry's current role and public image, and one pensioner from Sussex didn't hold back at all, speaking with frustration and blunt honesty that reflected a growing sentiment among many locals. The pensioner said, "He doesn't represent us anymore. He represents himself. Take the title back. He's no duke to me." And that statement quickly spread online, becoming a viral reflection of how sharply opinions have shifted in everyday British communities. Even in Sussex itself, the region that is literally tied to his royal title, the reaction is turning colder by the day, with residents increasingly questioning why their local identity is still being used in a global branding image they no longer feel connected to. Locals have reportedly been signing the House of Lords petition in large numbers, with some describing their participation as a direct response to what they see as political embarrassment and misrepresentation tied to Harry's overseas public behaviour and media presence. For many, the frustration is simple and direct. They feel the name Sussex is being used in global headlines while the actual community feels detached from the actions and controversies being associated with it. And that disconnect is fueling stronger calls for change. At this stage, the British public sentiment is being described by commentators as exhausted, frustrated, and increasingly impatient, with many saying they are simply done with the ongoing royal drama involving Harry and Meghan. And now Parliament is officially starting to take notice of that rising tension, which makes the situation far more serious than just online debates or media commentary, because institutional attention is now in play. But here is where the situation becomes even more complicated and, for some observers, more uncomfortable to process. While Harry and Meghan publicly emphasise independence from the monarchy and claim they stepped away from royal life, critics argue that they are still actively benefiting from the very royal identity they say they moved beyond, creating a contradiction that keeps fueling controversy. Their Netflix deal, signed under their production company R2L Productions, is still widely associated in public perception with Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, especially in promotional coverage and media headlines that continue using the royal branding. That branding effect is not accidental in the eyes of critics, who argue it plays a major role in maintaining global attention and commercial value, even when the content itself focuses on personal storytelling and post-royal life narratives. The same pattern is seen in their Spotify partnership era, particularly with the podcast Archetypes, which, although now discontinued, heavily leaned on their royal identity to attract massive audience engagement and global curiosity at launch. Observers point out that even after stepping back, the royal connection remained a powerful marketing tool that helped amplify their visibility across entertainment and business platforms, making the separation between private identity and royal branding harder to define clearly. And it doesn't stop there either, because even their children, Archie and Lilibet, have been referenced in media coverage using royal-style titles like Prince and Princess, which adds another layer of debate about consistency and public messaging. This has created a growing contradiction in public discourse, especially among critics who argue that while the couple promotes privacy for their family, parts of their public image still circulate with royal framing attached. That contradiction has been labelled by some analysts and commentators as title traffic, a phrase used to describe what they see as the strategic use of inherited prestige as a branding mechanism in modern media and commercial spaces. Supporters of this view argue that it creates a blurred line where royal identity is no longer just historical or ceremonial, but becomes part of a global media product tied to influence, recognition, and financial value. A constitutional scholar, Philip Murphy, was quoted in The Times delivering a particularly sharp critique, stating that no other British noble has weaponized their title so visibly for Hollywood fame and political commentary, a statement that intensified debate even further. He emphasized that traditionally, British titles are meant to represent duty, service, and institutional responsibility, not entertainment deals, memoir releases, or global media campaigns built around personal grievances and public storytelling. From this perspective, critics argue that Harry's public trajectory represents a shift away from what royal titles historically symbolize and instead reflects a modern media-driven identity shaped by personal branding and global exposure. For many in Britain, this situation has turned Harry into a symbol of contradiction, someone who stepped away from royal duty yet continues to exist in a space where royal identity still plays a visible and influential role. That contradiction becomes even more intense when considering that he is still publicly identified as the Duke of Sussex, while simultaneously operating as a private citizen, engaging in media, commentary, and commercial projects. Critics argue that this combination creates confusion about role, responsibility, and representation, especially when public statements and media appearances carry global influence tied to royal association. Buckingham Palace, however, has chosen complete silence throughout this entire growing controversy, and in royal tradition, silence is never neutral. It is often interpreted as strategic and deeply intentional. Behind the scenes, insiders say King Charles is fully aware of the rising petition and public pressure surrounding Harry's title, and he is reportedly monitoring the situation closely as it continues developing. Legally, the king has mechanisms available, including the use of letters patent, similar to actions previously taken in royal history to remove honours and titles under specific circumstances involving Prince Andrew and others. However, despite having the authority, the palace has not made any public move, and that hesitation is being closely analysed by commentators trying to understand the monarchy's long-term strategy. Royal experts suggest this restraint is not about ignoring the issue, but about managing optics carefully, ensuring that any action taken is seen as institutional necessity rather than personal retaliation. Biographer Robert Lacey has explained that King Charles is reportedly cautious about making the situation appear like a father disciplining his son, preferring instead that any outcome be framed as institutional distance rather than family conflict. In other words, the monarchy appears to be allowing political and public processes to take the lead, so any decision regarding titles feels structured, constitutional, and externally driven rather than emotionally motivated. Meanwhile, Prince William's position is described by insiders as even more distant, with reports suggesting he has stepped away from the issue entirely, while remaining fully aware of the ongoing petition and discussions. Sources claim William views the continued use of the Duke of Sussex title, particularly in international media and commercial environments, as a serious concern for the monarchy's long-term credibility and public perception. One insider described the situation as a form of high-profile self-promotion that lacks self-awareness, and a phrase that quickly circulated across media commentary discussions and online royal analysis spaces. Within the wider royal institution, the overall approach appears to be one of strategic silence, allowing external forces such as public opinion, media scrutiny, and parliamentary discussion to shape the direction of events. As that pressure builds, public support for removing Harry's title continues to climb, with polls showing growing dissatisfaction and increasing calls for formal review of his royal status. At the same time, scrutiny over commercial branding and media deals has intensified, with critics arguing that the Royal Association remains deeply embedded in how Harry and Meghan are perceived globally. Behind the scenes, royal insiders suggest the institution is gradually distancing itself, creating a quiet but noticeable separation that many interpret as preparation for possible long-term changes. If Parliament ultimately moves forward with action, Harry could face a major identity shift, potentially losing the Duke of Sussex title entirely and being publicly recognised in a completely different way. That outcome would significantly impact how he is introduced in public events, media coverage, and commercial partnerships, especially in environments where royal identity carries symbolic weight. In Hollywood and global media spaces, where perception often shapes opportunity, losing that title could dramatically alter how he is positioned in the entertainment and business world. Brand associations built around royal imagery could weaken, and the entire Sussex identity would face a major transformation in how it is understood, marketed, and received by audiences worldwide. Supporters and critics alike now find themselves watching closely as political, cultural, and institutional forces continue converging around one of the most controversial modern royal transitions in recent history. The entire situation is now standing at a crossroads where public opinion, parliamentary momentum, and royal silence are all moving in different directions, creating a highly unstable and unpredictable moment. And as this unfolds, the final outcome may not only redefine Harry's personal identity, but also reshape how modern royalty interacts with media, politics, and global influence moving forward. Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.